Picture this: a college student, clean record, kind, volunteers at shelters, gets accepted into a psychology study. 2 weeks later, he's standing over another human being, humiliating them, stripping their dignity. What happened? He didn't change, the situation did. You think you're a good person. You think you would never cross certain lines. You think you're different. But psychology says otherwise, and the evidence is unsettling, because the line between hero and someone who causes harm is thinner than a single decision. Today, we're talking about the Lucifer Effect, the scientific proof that ordinary people can commit extraordinary harm, not because they're broken, but because the environment breaks them, and it can happen to you faster than you think. We've been told a comforting lie our entire lives, that harmful people do harmful things, that bad actions come from bad hearts, that if you're raised right, you'll do right. But that's not how human psychology works, and the experiments prove it. Philip Zimbardo ran the Stanford Prison Experiment in 1971. He took normal college students, randomly assigned them roles. Half became guards, half became prisoners. Within 48 hours, the guards became oppressors. The prisoners broke down. The experiment had to stop early. These weren't criminals. They weren't psychopaths. They were kids who wanted extra credit. But the moment you give someone power, a uniform, and permission, the brain rewires, the identity shifts, and the harmful behavior begins. This is the first truth. You are not your morals. You are your environment. Your brain doesn't run on fixed values. It runs on roles, rules, and social pressure. Change the setting, and the self changes with it. Stanley Milgram proved this in a different way. He told participants they were testing memory, but they were actually testing obedience. A man in a lab coat told them to deliver stronger and stronger shocks to another person. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. 65% went all the way, to the maximum voltage, to the point where the other person stopped responding. They hesitated, they questioned, but they obeyed, because an authority figure told them it was necessary, and that was enough. Here's what nobody talks about. Those people weren't harmful by nature. They were teachers, engineers, parents. They went home that night and kissed their kids. They didn't enjoy it, but they did it anyway, because the situation demanded it. This is the second truth. Obedience is stronger than morality. Your brain is wired to follow authority. It's a survival mechanism. In tribal times, defying the chief meant exile, so your mind learned to obey first, question later, and that wiring still exists. Now let's talk about dehumanization, because harmful behavior doesn't start with action. It starts with language. It starts with labels. It starts with the moment you stop seeing someone as human and start seeing them as a category. During the Stanford experiment, the guards stopped using names. They used numbers. Prisoner 8612, prisoner 416. When you strip someone of their name, you strip them of their humanity. And once that happens, empathy shuts down. The brain stops seeing pain as pain. This happens in conflict, in propaganda, in political rhetoric. The moment a group becomes them instead of us, the capacity for harm skyrockets, because your brain doesn't process them as real people. It processes them as obstacles, as threats, as things. Rebecca worked in customer service for years. Sweet, patient, never raised her voice. Then she got promoted to management. Suddenly, she had power over schedules, over paychecks, over people's livelihoods. Within 6 months, employees were calling her cold, unreasonable, harsh.
Rebecca didn't change her personality. She changed her role. And roles come with scripts. When you're a manager, the script says enforce rules, maximize productivity, minimize costs. And the brain follows the script, even when the script conflicts with who you think you are. This is the third truth. Roles override identity. The moment you step into a position of power, your brain starts prioritizing the role over the person. You stop seeing individuals. You start seeing resources, productivity metrics, problems to solve. Here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. You've already done this. Maybe not to the extreme of a prison guard, but you've dehumanized someone. Cut someone off in traffic and called them an idiot, ignored a homeless person, dismissed someone's pain because it didn't affect you. Your brain does this automatically. It's called cognitive dissonance reduction. When your actions conflict with your self-image, your mind rewrites the story. You weren't harsh, they deserved it. You weren't ignoring suffering, they should have tried harder. And that rewriting, that's the first step. Because once you justify small acts of harm, bigger ones become easier. The line doesn't disappear all at once. It fades, one excuse at a time. Let's talk about diffusion of responsibility. This is the psychological trick that makes groups problematic. When you're alone, you feel accountable. But in a group, accountability dissolves because no single person feels responsible. Everyone assumes someone else will step in. This is why bystanders watch troubling things happen and do nothing. It's not because they're cowards, it's because their brain calculates, if no one else is acting, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is normal. Maybe it's not my place. In the Milgram experiment, when participants were in a room with others who refused to continue, obedience dropped to 10%. But when they were alone or when others complied, the rate shot back up. The group defines reality, and your brain follows the group. Daniel joined a fraternity in college. Good kid, respectful. But during hazing week, he participated in rituals that humiliated new members. He didn't enjoy it, but everyone else was doing it. And in that moment, the group's reality became his reality. Afterward, he rationalized it. It's tradition. It builds character. I went through it too. But those are just stories. Stories his brain invented to protect his self-image, because admitting he crossed a line would shatter his identity as a good person. This is the fourth truth. Morality is social. You don't have a fixed internal compass. You have a compass that constantly recalibrates based on the people around you. Change the group, and the compass spins, and you follow it without noticing. Now let's address the elephant in the room. If normal people can do troubling things, does that mean harmful behavior doesn't exist as a trait? Are we all just victims of circumstance? And if so, where does accountability go? Here's the answer. Harmful behavior exists, but it's not a personality trait. It's a pattern of actions, and patterns emerge from systems. You can hold someone accountable for their actions while also understanding the forces that shaped those actions. Both are true. The guards in the Stanford experiment were accountable, but so was Zimbardo. So was the system that gave them unchecked power. Accountability doesn't disappear, it multiplies, because harm is never the result of one person. It's the result of conditions that allow harm to thrive. Here's what scares people about this research. If anyone can become harmful under the right conditions, that means you can too. And that thought is unbearable, because we build our entire identity on the belief that we are good, that we are different, that we would resist.
But the data says otherwise. And denying it doesn't protect you. It makes you more vulnerable. Because the people who think they're immune to influence are the easiest to manipulate. They never see it coming. So what do you do with this information? Do you accept that you're a puppet of circumstance? That free will is an illusion? That morality is meaningless? No, you do the opposite. You become aware. And awareness is the first line of defense. Awareness means recognizing when a situation is pushing you toward harmful behavior, when authority is demanding obedience without question, When a role is asking you to dehumanize, when a group is normalizing harm, you notice and you pause. Sarah worked at a corporate office. Her boss asked her to terminate an employee right before the holidays. The justification was budget cuts, but Sarah paused. She asked, "Is this necessary? Is this the only option? Is this aligned with who I want to be?" She didn't refuse outright, but she pushed back. She offered alternatives. She made her discomfort visible, and that small act of resistance shifted the dynamic. The termination was delayed. A severance package was negotiated. The outcome wasn't perfect, but it was better. This is the fifth truth. Resistance doesn't require heroism. It requires hesitation. A 5-second pause before following orders. A single question before accepting the narrative. That pause is where your humanity lives, and it's the only thing standing between you and the Lucifer effect. Here's what you need to understand. Systems are designed to remove that pause. They create urgency, they reward compliance, they punish dissent. They make harmful actions feel efficient, necessary, normal. And your brain, wired for survival, goes along. But efficiency isn't morality. Compliance isn't virtue, and normal isn't the same as right. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it's okay. It means the system is working, and you are the system's instrument. Let's talk about power, because power doesn't corrupt. Power reveals. It removes the social consequences that normally keep behavior in check. When you have power, you stop needing approval, you stop fearing punishment, and the mask comes off. This is why people change when they get promoted, when they gain wealth, when they gain status. They didn't become different people. They became free to act on impulses that were always there. Power is truth serum, and the truth is often uncomfortable. Michael was a mid-level employee, quiet, agreeable. Then he became a VP. Suddenly, he was canceling meetings without notice, speaking over people, making decisions that hurt others without consultation. His friends said he changed, but he didn't. The leash just came off. You see this in relationships too. Someone is charming during the chase. Then the moment they feel secure, the charm disappears. The control begins. The harmful patterns creep in, because the incentive to perform is gone, and the real dynamic reveals itself. This is the sixth truth. People show you who they are when the cost of honesty is zero. Watch how someone treats a waiter, a subordinate, someone who can't fight back. That's the real person. Everything else is performance. But here's the twist. You are that person too. You have a version of yourself that emerges when no one is watching, when there are no consequences, when you have power and someone else doesn't. And that version might unsettle you. So the question becomes, how do you prevent that version from taking over? How do you stay aligned with your values in a system designed to strip them away? And the answer is uncomfortable. You have to actively choose it every single day.
You have to build reminders into your life, relationships that hold you accountable, principles you revisit regularly, moments where you check in and ask, am I still aligned or have I drifted? Because drift is silent, and by the time you notice, you're already far from shore. Let's talk about the banality of problematic behavior. Hannah Arendt coined this term while covering trials of those who caused large-scale harm. She expected dramatic figures. She found bureaucrats, people who were just following orders, just doing their jobs, just trying to get through the day. They didn't wake up and choose harm. They chose efficiency. They chose career advancement. They chose not making waves. And one small compromise at a time, they became instruments of large-scale damage. Because problematic behavior doesn't announce itself, it markets itself as pragmatism. You see this in corporations that harm communities for profit, in governments that prioritize power over people, in individuals who justify damage because it's just business. The language is always clean, the motives are always rational, but the outcome is still damaging. This is the seventh truth. Harmful behavior doesn't feel harmful when you're inside it. It feels like necessity, like logic, like survival. And that's what makes it so concerning, because you can participate in harm while genuinely believing you're doing the right thing. So how do you know? How do you distinguish between necessary action and moral compromise? You ask, who benefits, who suffers, and am I willing to trade their suffering for my comfort? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, that's your signal. Don't ignore it. Here's what the Lucifer Effect teaches us. You are not a fixed moral entity. You are a collection of responses shaped by context, and context is everything. Put a kind person in a harmful system, and the system wins every time. But you are not powerless, because awareness changes the game. When you understand the mechanisms of influence, you can spot them. When you recognize the scripts, you can refuse to read the lines. When you see the system, you can choose to disrupt it. This doesn't mean you'll always win. Systems are powerful. They have momentum, they have resources, they punish resistance. But resistance still matters, because every time you hesitate, you remind the system that humans are not machines, and that reminder spreads. Let's go back to the Stanford Prison Experiment. On day 6, a graduate student named Christina Maslach visited the mock prison. She was troubled by what she saw. She confronted Zimbardo. She told him this had gone too far, and he listened. He shut it down. Christina wasn't part of the experiment. She wasn't in the role. She wasn't under the pressure, and that distance gave her clarity. She saw what everyone inside had normalized, and her outside perspective broke the spell. This is why external accountability matters, why whistleblowers matter, why independent oversight matters. Because people inside the system lose perspective, they adapt, they rationalize, and someone from the outside has to say, this isn't normal, this isn't okay. You need people in your life who will do that for you, who will tell you when you're drifting, when your justifications are getting too convenient, when your actions are misaligned with your stated values, and you need to listen, even when it hurts. Because the alternative is slow moral erosion. You won't notice it happening. You'll just wake up one day and realize you've become someone you don't recognize, and by then, the path back is steep. Here's the final uncomfortable truth. The capacity for harmful behavior is not a bug, it's a feature. Your brain evolved to prioritize the in-group and dehumanize the out-group, to follow authority, to justify harm, because in the ancestral environment, those traits helped you survive.
But we don't live in that environment anymore. We live in a world where those instincts cause massive damage, where tribalism fuels conflict, where obedience enables large-scale harm, where dehumanization justifies mistreatment. The instincts remain, but the context has changed. And that means you have a choice. You can run on autopilot and let the instincts drive, or you can intervene. You can override. You can choose the harder path, the path that requires constant vigilance, constant self-examination, constant course correction. This is what separating yourself from the Lucifer Effect looks like. It's not dramatic, it's not heroic, it's just a series of small decisions. To pause, to question, to resist, to choose humanity over convenience. And those small decisions compound. They shape who you become. They determine whether you're the person who follows orders without question or the person who asks why, whether you're the bystander or the one who intervenes. So, here's what you do. Starting today, you pay attention. You notice when you're being asked to dehumanize, when authority demands blind compliance, when the group pressures you to normalize harm, and you pause. You ask, does this align with who I want to be? Not who I think I am, but who I want to be. Because who you think you are is a story. Who you want to be is a direction. And direction requires action. You build accountability. You surround yourself with people who will call you out. You create systems that make it harder to drift. You set boundaries around the roles you take on and the power you accept. Because power is not inherently problematic, but unchecked power is concerning. And if you're not actively checking yourself, no one else will. The system wants compliance. The group wants conformity. Only you can choose resistance. This is the truth about human nature. We are capable of extraordinary kindness and extraordinary harm. And the difference between the two is not personality, it's context, it's choice, it's the willingness to stay awake when everything around you is designed to put you to sleep. You are not immune to the Lucifer effect, but you are not helpless either. The line between helpful and harmful behavior runs through every human heart, and you get to decide which side you feed.